So 26 years old, you have your drywall business. You have a crew of how many people at that point?
By that point, I had 30 employees. Honestly, the original plan was to be a professional skateboarder. I've actually asked myself many times if I was to niche down to do one thing, what would I do? And just to be completely honest, I've actually struggled with that.
Welcome, everybody, to our latest episode. I'm super excited about our guest that we have on today. This is Taylor Payne, and he is joining us, I believe, from Casa Grande, Arizona. Taylor, what's going on, man?
How's it going?
Are you based out of Casa Grande, or?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah.
are.
Taylor runs Total Precision Builders. He has been running this operation now, I believe, for the last 5 years or so now. But let that not fool you, because Taylor actually has close to, I think, 30 years of trades experience. So this was not something that he just woke up and decided to do. It was born from a place of true experience. And I want to get into that experience today. Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of how you got your start in the trades?
All right. Well, that goes way, way back. Um, when I was 12 years old, a buddy of mine, his dad owned a drywall company. And so on weekends and in the summer, we would go help his dad do grunt work, scraping floors after texture, sanding, um, stocking sheetrock, things like that. Make a few extra bucks during the summer, on weekends, things like that. Um, kind of did that growing up. Um, when I was 18, I decided to go full time doing drywall, and I just fell in love with it. I loved working with my hands. Obviously there's a lot of other factors in there, but I found what I liked to do and went all in. Um, so by the time I was about 20, let's say 22, I had a 7-man taping crew. I kind of niched down from doing all into just doing taping and finishing because I loved it. It was my thing.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 26, I started my first drywall business.
Right on.
So
Right on. So 26 years old, you have your drywall business. You have a crew of how many people at that point?
by that point, I had 30 employees.
Woo, all right. So you're a 26-year-old guy, and you really got your start when you were a young kid. Did you always kind of have this feeling that you were gonna kind of venture off on your own and start a construction company?
Um, Not as a kid. Honestly, the original plan was to be a professional skateboarder.
Heck yeah.
um,
Right on.
and I was actually sponsored at 18,
Nice.
kind of working that way, but I was a dumb kid and got in a lot of trouble. Um, and ended up back more leaning on the construction, but I loved it. I loved working hard.
Right on. And it sounds like from this time in your life, like it was 26 years old, did you kind of have like this moment where you're like, you know what? I got a good amount of employees under my belt. I really feel like I can scale this thing to the next level. Like, what was the progression from that point?
Um, well, I guess there was a point. Kind of goes back. My boss at the time, his son. So my best friend at the time was. He wanted his son to do something else. Didn't want him to stay in the business, and so since I was kind of part of the family, he was like, I want you to take over the drywall. I want, he's kind of pushing me in that direction. So I felt like, okay, I'm going to take over. This will be my company. I'll do, because I was already starting to run things at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and, and then his son ended up coming back to work for him and took over.
Oh, wow.
And I actually learned, hey, get it in writing. Because
Yeah.
this was always a handshake. We were like family. It was like, oh, you're going to run the business. You're going to run the business. And then it didn't happen.
Wow.
And so I told him, I'm going to get my license. I'm going to do my own thing. And, he basically said he didn't think I could make it.
Wow.
So I proved him wrong.
Wow. And so it
So
sounds like you kind of had that chip on your shoulder too, where you're like, you know what? Like if I'm not going to get this opportunity here, I'm just going to go create that opportunity for myself. Is that kind of what it was?
exactly.
Yeah. And I guess then you know, as your life went on and you continue down that path, what kind of led you to the point that you're at right now? Because Total Precision Builders, I mean, we're talking about a full-blown general contractor. You're licensed, obviously. You got your ROC. I don't know if you have your KB1 or KB2, but
I got a KB1. Yeah.
okay. So what led from that 26-year-old guy running a drywall company to Total Precision Builders today? Because there's a massive gap in history right there.
There is. I know we don't have a ton of time, but the short version is in 2008, the crash hit, um, and it hit me hard.
Oh
I
wow.
actually, at that point, I had 30 employees. Things were going great, and I had three big commercial projects that were going on at the same time. That all three general contractors went bankrupt.
Oh wow.
So within 1 month, I lost $500,000, and you know, I will say I was young and I was stupid and I didn't plan my finances the best that I should have. I was making way too much for being that young, and I lost everything. I
Mm,
I ended up going bankrupt.
wow.
I lost my house. I lost everything to make sure that my employees were all paid, my suppliers got paid, all this, and so I went back to work for somebody else, helping them run their drywall company as a buddy of mine. And then it got even slower. In 2010, it was just so slow that I ended up taking a job at a prison doing maintenance. And it was a lot of fun, but I'm used to being the boss.
Yeah.
I'm used to, a lot different. But I realized there was no future there. I was just taking it while I had to. And then a buddy of mine that owns a business here, um, his company was starting to grow and he needed help. And so he called me and asked if I'd come in as a project manager. And he was a GC. And I started helping him out with that, and we grew. And started building big projects, building schools and medical facilities and different things. And I kind of came through the ranks, and we were really close. I ended up VP of construction, and then we
Nice.
partnered up on another business, um, and did that for basically 10 years. Um, well, almost 10 years, I guess. But during that time, we were, we did nothing but commercial construction, and they, we would constantly get phone calls for residential remodels and hey, do you guys do kitchens and bathrooms and whatever? And we didn't. Um, so I ended up one day, answering the phone. I passed on about $200,000 worth of work in an hour. Just like, oh, here, call my buddy. Here, this guy will take care of you. And I just had one of those kind of aha moments, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
This is obviously the market's taken off in that area, and I'm just throwing it away. So I started. Um, it's called TP Side Work at the time. I just created an LLC to kind of have a legitimate company, but doing these little projects, um, using some of the employees that we had at the other business that just needed extra cash.
Yeah.
And it took off. It got busier, and pretty soon I had two full-time employees, and then four full-time employees, and then I'm trying to run two businesses, and it was super stressful, working every day, ruining my marriage, things like that, and basically came to the point that I needed to choose which path I was going to take. Um, so I ended up realizing that making a choice, and I'm a religious man, so asking God, so which direction should I go?
Yeah.
And the smart choice would have been stay with my partner, um, doing these big projects, and but the answer I got was see where this takes you. So in 2019, I phased myself out of
Wow.
that business, and just went full time doing this. Um, so I guess part of that, going back, is I because of my experience starting to be the GC way back in 2012, and building large projects and things. That's how I ended up with a KV1, because I proved, hey, I've built 14 schools. I've done this project, that project, and you know, for this business, I was able to have that KV1, even though I wasn't going to use it for what it could be used for.
Taylor, okay, so I want to break some things down because you just said a lot of amazing things, and I'm just gonna kind of run through some of the ones that just came off top. One, it sounds like you felt, you know, you mentioned your faith background, and it sounds like there was multiple leaps of faith that you've taken over the span of your journey these last, shoot, I'd say like 20 years. um, and it sounds like God has been with you like from the beginning, and it's just more so been you trying to figure out like, is this the right time, or do I do it here? And right, and that's kind of been like the overall experience for you. But what I also hear is you've been pretty ruthless, pretty relentless when it comes. I'll use the word ruthless when it comes to just taking action. Like, you had the idea, and then you're like, open up the LLC for TP side work, and taking on little jobs here. And so you didn't fully just burn the boats and jump in and do your own thing. You kind of just took little actions day by day by day by day. Once you kind of had all the evidence in front of you, and you kind of saw that, like, hey, wait a second, I can actually run this business, and I can actually grow this thing. It seems like at that point, that's where you kind of checked in with yourself, you checked in with God, and you checked in, more than likely, you mentioned you're married with your wife too. And you realize that, like, hey, this is probably going to be the best move for myself, for my family, and ultimately for all the people that I can serve with these remodel projects that I'm doing. And so it sounds like that was more or less like the case for you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
right on. Well, Taylor, I guess walk me through now, because now we're at this point where you started Total Precision Builders. You you can see that people have a lot of interest in what it is that you've built. You have an incredible background, experience, and all that. But now it's like, dude, you're in that 2008 state one more time where you're like, you're really building up from the ground up and starting from ground zero. So I guess, what does TPB specialize in? What has been your bread and butter? And I guess, like, who do you serve?
I've actually asked myself many times, if I was to niche down to
Yeah.
do one thing, what would I do? Um, and just to be completely honest, I've actually struggled with that. Um, I get bored easy, so
Mm,
I like taking on different projects. I do love a whole a whole home renovation is super fun.
yep.
Where we've got access to the whole thing. So I enjoy those, but we also do additions. We've built custom homes. Uh, we still do commercial tenant improvements.
It sounds like you guys have kind of mastered, when it comes to the remodel side, at least, like, you really have a rhyme and reason behind everything that you guys do when you do it, right? Because your process is a little bit different from a lot of GCs that I've experienced, just because you have a really intimate understanding of the trades and how to coordinate those trades, schedule them out, find the right labor and things like that. So, what kind of makes you unique as it relates to you as a general contractor with Total Precision Builders?
Uh, I guess the unique that I strive for is is probably communication with
Yeah.
with our clients. You know, without communication, everything falls apart.
Right.
Because let's face it, this is construction. Nothing goes as planned. You
Never.
know, you can have an amazing, process and schedule, and something will happen.
Yeah.
Something, you'll open the wall up and realize, oh, well, that we didn't plan on that. Or accidents happen. You have somebody working in the attic, and then they put a foot through the ceiling,
Yeah.
and you know, but that communication when things go wrong, you know, is key. Calling the client and say, hey, I don't want to have to tell you this, but my guy just fell through your ceiling. Now here's the steps we're going to take to take care of it, but I want you to know,
Yeah.
because I'd rather you hear it from my mouth and be upset than find out and
Yeah.
then really be mad at me. So
Communication
I guess,
number one.
yeah. So
Communi- commu- and from that communication too, it sounds like part of the reason why that's so important to you is because you've probably learned over the last 3 decades, like what poor communication can lead to, right? And there's probably been a lot of lessons I know that you could probably pull from like a time where you were like, man, if this were just communicated properly, like we could probably be doing a lot better right now.
you know, I think I learned a lot of that from being a subcontractor. As a drywall, one of the things I hated was, given a schedule, and we I would have everything planned out. The GCs telling me that this is ready at this time, and it wouldn't be. And I could have done something else, or time lost, and it really made me. I think one of the things that other GCs back in the day would compliment me on was like, man, you always tell me what's going on. You called me, hey, just want to let you know that we finished hanging the rock today. We'll have inspection tomorrow. We'll do this, just kind of keeping them up to date. And I would hear, nobody does that. They just, and for me, it was just maybe I'm a control freak, and you know, well, I would like to know. So if I was in your shoe, and so as a GC, it helped me. Um,
Yeah, it sounds like there's so much carryover from like all of those past lessons. Maybe there are even lessons from when you were like 18 years old and you were still like riding the skateboard doing a sponsorship deal where you're like, man, like I didn't realize that so many of these lessons can carry into the smallest things when it comes to communicating with homeowners or when it comes to, finding a new sub for a certain trade. And so that's amazing to hear. I guess one thing that a lot of GCs tell me, Taylor, is that they struggle with a couple key things. But one of those things, especially in this market right now, is finding good labor and finding good work. How have you been able to build a team that wants to work for you and actually respects you?
I think the key thing for me, as far as people wanting to work for me, is whether it's my employees or subcontractors. I would never ask them to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Mm,
And I've been on the projects where I'm picking up trash
yeah.
or, you know, things happening. Short story. I had a school that I was building that my drywaller was super behind, as a subcontractor, and I had a serious deadline. We had
Mm.
liquidated damages or whatever,
Oh,
and he didn't show up for a few days. And so I came with work clothes. That after all my meetings, I went in and put on my stilts and
wow.
started taping and just moving forward on the project. And I was there that night texturing to make sure this section was done for the painters. And anyway, the owner or the the CEO of that school, he actually came with a few teachers and whatever that night. They were just gonna walk around, and it was like 8:30, and I'm texturing this room, and he's like, Taylor, what are you doing here? I was like, man, somebody's got to get this thing done. But all my employees all the subs have seen me get my hands dirty, and they're like, "Hey, boss, you shouldn't be doing that. You got people." And I was like, "Well, I would never ask somebody to do something I wouldn't," and
Yeah.
that's carried over. And so people, the crew that I've built and the subs that I have, that I work with, all know that,
Yeah.
and so they work well with me.
That is massive. That's huge. And it sounds like humility is like a core value of yours that like if you're ready to get down on your hands and knees to literally tape up a wall or to get on your stilts to hang drywall yourself, like that's that is something that ultimately resonates with the people that you work with, and it's something that they respect you for. Um, and so I guess that being said, Taylor, challenges I think that a lot of GCs face is, yeah, of course, like the recruiting side of it. I think that there's like kind of like a humility thing for a lot of them too, that they get a couple jobs under their belt, they start to feel themselves, and they're like, oh, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna be doing this stuff type of stuff anymore, and then everything kind of falls apart. But I guess like the challenges as it presently stands, because you're 5 years into this thing, running it full time, what challenges are you currently facing in your company as it stands right now? Maybe not working with homeowners, but is there anything specific that you're really like feeling the heat on?
Uh, yes. Um, this last year, within about a year going back, made some not so smart decisions. Tried to grow a little too quick. Thought I had some really good contracts that were gonna, like, oh, this is gonna take us to the next level, and hired a bunch of guys, bought a bunch of trucks, um, and took on a bunch of debt to
Yeah.
take on these larger projects, and projects got postponed. Projects decided not to happen.
Yeah.
A few different things. So it's put us in a challenging spot, with debt and with
Yeah.
you know a lot more overhead, and then I'm sure you've heard this. Things have slowed down.
Yeah.
Things are not what they were doing, and I've had to let people go and kind of
Yeah.
you know get things
Adjust.
under control,
Yeah.
and it's right now it's tough. I mean,
It's
financially
challenging.
it's a little tough,
Yeah.
but we're gonna make it through it.
Keep on keeping on, right? I mean, you've been through some of the hardest times already, but I think that the one thing that I have seen is it seems like from every era of your life where you have encountered challenges, you've been able to pull out a massive lesson from those things and actually apply it to your current situation, Taylor. So, and it sounds like you're already kind of like, okay, wait a second, we're growing, that's good, but maybe we slow the roll a little bit, and I have no doubt that you'll be able to kind of get it in place. And that being said, I guess plans for the company, like where are you looking to take this thing? And I guess how can people get in touch with Taylor Payne?
The whole reason I started this, um, I think, like I was saying, I kind of had that drive to take this big, like I was doing before, and part of the reason deciding to go this route with this business was to simplify my life.
Right.
And although I'm ambitious and I tend to, I see an opportunity and I start, oh, this would be good. I really want to simplify and bring it back to those core values of
Heck yeah.
being able to take care of each client like they're the most important person that we have.
Yeah.
Even though we're doing multiple projects or whatever, that they feel that I am the most important.
Right.
Um, and to do that, you know, just getting things back under, control, get rid of the debt, and be able to focus more on, instead of feeding the beast and trying to grow this business, to get it back where, hey, we're good financially, that we can totally focus on each person.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, my end goal is, I've always wanted to build projects for myself.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, I would love to build properties that I own, you know,
Hmm.
commercial buildings, rental properties or even just spec properties to sell, where I'm the client. I've
Right.
always wanted to do that, and I tend to continue work for other people as far as bringing, on customers. But at some point, my end goal is to be me. I'm the
Yeah.
customer.
Make the customer yourself and build for yourself, and then give people opportunities. Like, I mean, if you have a commercial building and you can put different types of businesses in there, right? Give other people within the literal building that you built the opportunity to run their businesses and bring in their own customers. I think that's an amazing mission. And it goes back to your humble roots, Taylor, and I think that's a big part of the reason why you and I first connected is I kind of felt that humility from you, and it is really infectious. And so for the people that want to get in touch with Taylor, totalprecisionbuilders.com is the name of the website. You guys can visit it. Taylor does some incredible work as it relates to kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels, and he services, for the most part, I would say pretty much a lot of Casa Grande. Is that right?
Yeah, all of Casa Grande, most of Pinell County. So Casa Grande, Coolidge, Florence, Eloy, Maricopa, you know.
If you guys would like to get in touch with a humble, ambitious, willing builder who wants to do a good job for his homeowners, then I absolutely recommend that you guys reach out to Taylor. And even if you just want to have a conversation with him, general contractors, you guys listening to this and want to connect with a like-minded person who has similar values to you, I am all about, the purpose of this podcast is also to unite and connect so many general contractors, because I feel like so many GCs, they kind of live in these boxes and in these silos, and they're going through all of the stressful stuff and carrying it on their shoulders, and they don't really have somebody like-minded to talk to them about it, because they're always worried about, like, oh, that guy's going to be the competition, that guy's going to steal this from me. But the truth is that there's so much opportunity in the marketplace, because unfortunately there are not too many general contractors like yourself, Taylor, who have your heart in the right place. So thank you for all you do, for how you serve your community, and for being on the show, man.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything you want to add? Any last comments? Any last pieces of advice maybe to general contractors that maybe you want to share?
I guess advice for a GC would be one, don't grow too fast. It doesn't end well. But two, do the things that you love to do.
Mm,
Because if you get into an area where I hate doing this, I don't want to do this, but I have to,
yeah,
it makes it a struggle.
yeah,
Do It's so true that if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
yeah, yeah. That's massive. Follow your heart when it comes to the work that you want to do. That's what it sounds like, right, Taylor?
Yep, for
Right
sure.
on, man. Right on. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for taking the opportunity to listen to the show. Once again, all of the links with regard to Total Precision Builders and Taylor Payne will be in the show notes below. And we appreciate you for tuning into this episode. Taylor, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.